from where you are?
Yep, I am, and we're
All right. I think one of the things that we just wanted to do is make sure that we didn't lose any kind of momentum in the conversation about what direction we wanted to go with the policy. So I don't know if people have had an opportunity to look at policies that are out there, look at the formats of the policies. And I have some thoughts about how I was looking at the NISBA policy that's copyrighted. So of course we don't belong to their policy service. So we couldn't just lift their policy, but I liked the framework of it. And I think that there would be things that we could do to make it our own and not use, just sort of use the same type of framework. But um, Julie or Kristen, have you had an opportunity to look at other policies and?
Um,
Um,
I have, I have. Sorry, Chris, were you gonna speak?
yeah, but you can. That's okay.
Oh, okay. I did share in the policy group box in our Google Drive. I really liked this one by Pennsylvania. It's actually the University of Pennsylvania. It's called Educational Equity in School District Policy in Action. And it's kind of laid out. I like the layout of it. It kind of, I don't know if you guys can pull that up. If you have access to that. It kind of like lays out the first part of it is the quest. So it's kind of like different bullets of goals that they want to accomplish with their equity policy within the building. And then it kind of lays out how they define equity within the educational system. And then at the end, it kind of gives action statements like to achieve educational equity, we commit to, in order to have equity, we will for every student. So I really like, because I'd said before, like I'm big into those action words and those. So I really liked the layout. It ended up only being 2 pages, but I really liked the layout of it. That it seemed very easy to read, and very. Their bullets were very defined and very, um, you know, easy to see the vision of what the policy and what the school wanted to look like and be like. So I don't know if you guys got a chance to see that.
Which one were you talking about?
I think it's the first one on that page. It's one that's from, if you open up policy, I think it's the first one. It's from the University of Pennsylvania. It's actually like a college one. And when I was looking at a lot of like trying to look at the high school level equity policies, it was like kind of what I saw was a lot of it was blended in with the code of conducts for the school. But then I found some that were actual policies. So there's one that I found that was from the Cincinnati Public School that's a little bit further down into that policy folder. And then I found this Pennsylvania one, which is one that I really liked. I just liked the layout of it. I liked that the quest was at the top, like the action, and then the definition was a little bit further down into the document. But then, like if you look at the Cincinnati one, the definition is right on top, and then they have bullets and, kind of have it laid out that way. So I don't know. Those are the 2 that I saw that I really liked. Especially that Pennsylvania one. I really liked how it laid out and was very user friendly to read.
Kristen, can you see those, or had you looked at other things?
I hadn't looked at those specific ones. I had looked at other ones that I had seen before. And I was trying to actually download those ones to add them to that folder. But yeah, I don't know if it's downloading. Yeah, I was trying to just look through when she was talking. Yeah, I've looked at quite a few policies. To be honest, since the last meeting, I haven't looked closely at them. I just haven't really had time. But there's a lot of different things that are in policies, which I think is why last time I asked if there was certain data or anything we were using to kind of guide the direction of it, because I've seen a lot of different things in different policies. Some are very equity specific, some are like diversity and equity, some of them are racism and equity, some of them are inclusion and equity. So, I mean, I think equity in general includes a lot of those things, so you don't necessarily have to put the title of that or all those words in the title, but
I agree with you with that. It's a comprehensive, for me, the meaning of it is more comprehensive. And so one of the things I was looking, and Julie, I can't, for some reason, if I go to a split screen, I lose my WebEx meeting, so I can't pull yours up,
Okay.
but I will look at them afterwards and look carefully at them. But I was looking at the NISBA one, and it seems to break things down into areas. And I liked that because I thought we could turn it into using those areas, like those action statements that you're talking about. If we targeted, certain areas, and they talk about curriculum instruction, student achievement, professional learning, the school environment, which is the structure, the programming and the services, and communication and community involvement. So I liked the way those areas, I think that those are all, would be target areas for us to hit. So, it sounds like we can blend a couple of different things to get, I think, something that's reflective of, what we feel we want to pursue. It
yeah.
just needs somebody to type.
Like I said, I had looked at other policies and I had saved some of them, so I was trying to pull them up to see which ones check out again. One of the ones I had liked was similar on how it broke things down, and I just added 2 to that folder. F22, diversity, equity, and inclusion. That one, I like how that breaks down kind of what the different areas are, like the expectations for the district, board expectations for recruitment, expectations for curriculum. Like, I don't know if that hits every area, but I like how it breaks it down into what the obligation is and then how to assess that and then how it will be reported. Like, so it's not just we will do this, but it also has the accountability piece on like who's going to be, or how is this going to be monitored.
Looking for that too, Chris, right now. I'm gonna try to pull my documents up.
What'd you say? I don't know what she just said.
I think she said she was going to try and call up the documents.
Oh.
She may, I don't know if she's on her phone. Is that what that icon means?
Give me one. Yeah, give me 1 minute. I'm actually on my phone right now because my husband works from home right now and my daughter's in college. So they're all streaming on my other computers right now. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to try to pull up my Google Docs.
Dr. Glover, can you share them so that Julie can see them on this screen?
I can. Julie, do you have video on your phone?
I do.
She's on her
You can do a
phone.
screen share.
If you can see a screen share, I'll share it on my screen here. You should be able to see it without issue.
Because if she can see it, perhaps I can see it too. So that was
Yep.
that would help both of us, Julie.
Yes, perfect.
1 second here to pop it up.
I put another one in the folder, that's labeled equity and accountability. Some of that gets into more specific things than I think Salem would need to, because it talks a lot about eliminating racial inequities and things like that. But I think some of
I
the
got
points
it.
in that policy are good ones to look at as well.
So this is the, looks like it's for Montpelier. Kristen, the F-22
Yeah.
one. Whenever you need me to scroll down, let me know.
Okay, yep, this is one I've looked at before. Just give me a quick sec.
Not that everything in this policy necessarily would be applicable or what we'd want to put in the one for Salem, but I just liked how it broke down kind of the obligations and how it would be assessed and um,
Glover, if you want to scoot down to the next page, I'm good.
That good?
Yep, thank you. And Dr. Glover, can you just scoot up the rest of that page? Thank you. You're awesome.
And that is scrolling. It can be a, pastime of mine. That is the rest of the policy there.
Okay, perfect. I do like this, Chris. The one thing that I do like that it almost sets the mood coming into the document as to why at this time they decided to make this with the Black Lives Matter way. They decided to make this an important time to move on this policy and to change the atmosphere of their school. I don't know if that's necessary per se, but I do like how they kind of put a little background to their policy and what was in history happening at that time. Hold on a sec. Sorry. About that. I do like that third paragraph there. I think it kind of falls into what we have kind of defined equity to be. And I do like the breakdown of the expectations of the different areas. The only thing I don't like about that approach in some way is that we decide that maybe those are the only people who need to be actively engaged in the equity process, or those are the people that we account to. And I really, sometimes when a policy just sees certain groups like that, then they're like, oh, this policy only pertains to those groups. And it doesn't always see all the stakeholders or the student body as a whole when it gets broken down like that. So that's the only thing, like I could see putting a little piece of that being like, the board members will be a part of this. If we decide to establish an equity committee, that's a year-round equity committee like we have right now. That would be something like the equity committee will help to work to make sure curriculum are in balance, blah, blah, blah. But I like to kind of see it as a whole school's efforts in it instead of just always saying the administration will do this, the school board will do this. It kind of means, well, I don't really have to do anything. Does that make sense?
Oh, definitely. And I like this policy, how it's written, I think it definitely could be modified and more added to it. And I think a more collaborative approach. I was just saying I like how it kind of breaks down what some of the different expectations are and how that will be monitored, or how, I mean, we certainly could look at whatever expectations we wanted to, not necessarily use what they have. I just liked how it was broken down more than just saying, oh, we're going to do this and Salem doesn't accept this, but then there's no accountability piece to it. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm trying to say.
No, absolutely.
I'm just like,
yeah, no, I see that. I see the benefit of that. I see that maybe as being at the end of the policy, like something where, because we feel this definition, because we want this atmosphere at school, because we have this plan, and this is part of our plan, and then go to the accounting. We will be this. We will, take on this piece of it or take on that part of it. It is something that's also a part of the student handbook, or that that says, principals will take care of this or will take care of that. So I think some of the key players in that accountability piece would be good to point out at the end of the policy. Just, we commit to do this to support this environment in our school, or to support this curriculum, or these actions. Definitely.
yeah, and I'm not necessarily saying even have the expectations for the district administration or for the board necessarily, but just how it's kind of broken down into expectations for the curriculum or expectations for professional development, kind of highlighting what the goals are, and then what kind of what, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm explaining it right. Like I said, I'm really scattered today. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's incorporating the action plan right into the policy. So, depending upon how it gets organized, we can do it any number of ways. So it definitely, we could, not necessarily these tasks, but tasks that we want to highlight. We can certainly identify and how that reporting and when that's going to be reported out and how it's going to be assessed. I think those are critical, because you only change what you measure. So, I think it's important that we do that.
Yeah,
Dr.
I would think there'd still be a more specific action plan probably, but like we'll be looking at yearly kind of the curriculum, and like then you're actually setting an action plan for how that's going to be done versus, oh, we're looking at the curriculum. Well, who's looking at the curriculum and how are they changing it? And I think that would be more the action plan
Mhm.
broken down a little bit more. I don't know, maybe I'm thinking about it wrong, but a lot of the policies I saw had kind of these pieces of like, these are our goals and these are how we're planning to measure it.
I think those are good. You said you added a couple more, Dr. Glover. Can you share those as well?
Yep, give me a second.
You don't have to just look at the ones I shared, because there's other ones in there too. I
have
only
seen
put
some of the
one other
ones.
one in there. There was at least one other one I had looked at before, but I can't find it. But the other one I put in there is just under equity and accountability.
From Bellevue.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, here we go.
I mean, this one's much, much longer, but some of the pieces in it I thought might be things to consider.
I'm ready for the next page. All right, Dr. Glover, is there any more on that there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
This one is about 6 pages, maybe into 7.
Okay, so this one's broken it down very well as to A, you'll do this, B, you'll do this, C, you'll do this. So I appreciate that. I mean, there's really not any question as to who has what job and who has what accountability. It's very clear. Which is good. I like that it goes into a lot of different areas like free and reduced lunch, professional development, what kind of training will be a part of that. I like the details of it. I don't know. I mean, is this something that we need? Is this something that we want? Do we want like a 2-page document? Do we want like a 7-page document? I don't know. I like them both, I guess. I think there's a place for both.
Yeah, I don't know how we pinpoint exactly what we want in ours. Because, like I said at the beginning, I've seen so many different ones and they have all different kinds of things in them. So I don't really know how to narrow down what really is applicable for Salem and what the goals necessarily would be.
So I apologize for having missed the first part of the discussion. Maybe some of this has been discussed, but I think to some degree, I mean, there's probably some advantages to having more stuff in the policy and less stuff in a plan, but then also vice versa, as far as flexibility to or agility to change, right? Because I think some of these things could go in a policy, or they could end up in a plan. That policy is a couple pages, 30,000 feet, and then plan is closer to where the rubber meets the road. I don't have a strong, I don't have a strong opinion. I mean, I can sort of see some pluses and negatives of either way, but I mean, I think that, thinking about, I guess from my perspective, what I'm sort of thinking about, okay, what should be in one of those two? And then, right, because part of it's, okay, what is the details of what goes into one of those two? And then the other piece is, okay, where's the line drawn of where it goes?
Well, in my thought, I feel like the policy, at least what I've seen the majority of the time, the policy kind of pinpoints which ideas you're focusing on. Like there might be a section on professional development and kind of the goals of professional development, but then the action plan would actually get into the details of what professional development is going to happen, and same like, and then same thing with curriculum, like the goal, it might be to be this, but then the action plan is, well, what are we looking at, who's doing what, and what changes are happening, and
Right.
I don't know. That's kind of how I see it, but maybe not.
One of the
That
things.
makes some sense. Go ahead. Sorry, Ann.
Oh, that's okay. I've been working on the policy committee since I came on to the board. And as you watch how that process evolves, we have certain policies, and then as more information comes in, more data comes in, the policies become much more complex and much more detailed. So I think for us, this is the beginning of the odyssey of this policy. And so if we get the framework for how we want to try and have the conversation move forward, I don't think we need to have a lot of the detailed parts in the policy, just that we want to move forward. We want to have these conversations, because I do think it's important that we continue to open this up for additional conversation. And it's, I think, going to be an evolving process. But in order to start it, we need to have something, a document that, is our threshold. So I think there'll be multiple versions of this as, policy is reviewed every year. So I don't think, and even if we find we put something in that's not workable, that's the beauty of the process. We can bring it back to the committee and, hammer out a better way to say it in the policy, or, how what we might want to target. So for me, at this point, less is more, because it gets us started, and we begin to, as we develop the conversations, we get more data, and then we can be more specific in the policy.
That vision of what you're saying, Anne, I can appreciate that. I don't know if Dr. Glover has a chance to pull up that University of Pennsylvania one.
Sure can.
Okay, it's kind of, I don't know. I wanted to just have everybody see that too, because it's kind of like what I see Kristen's, what I see the benefit of Kristen's, and then I see the benefit of this one. And I see them both covering the bases, but just in two different ways.
So Pennsylvania on the Penn Consortia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. It starts with like the quest, and it outlines.
Here it's, I agree with Ann's point of probably a good first step for us is to start building the frame of the policy. So just those, like in this policy, as you're looking at it, the quest, that, or the goal, and then they list out, I'll scroll this back just 1 second. And then to achieve it, how we're going to do it, in order to, everyone will, and that's where, the beliefs come in. Okay, I'll put it back. But just that idea of, we've used the word accountability a lot. I've heard the word accountability a lot. So we want to make sure that there's something that there's some type of follow-up and follow-through with. We've talked about, having those folks engaged in those conversations. So there's a shared there's a shared decision-making piece of this, or there's a committee piece of this, or it's some type of stakeholders group piece. So there's involvement from others that are a part of it. We spent a lot of time on defining or trying to define what equity means to us. So at some point it's, a belief statement or even a definition section to a policy that you'd want to have, and something like that would go up front to kind of set the stage for the rest. And we talked about wanting to have a plan. And that's the Bob's, how much goes into a policy, how much of that goes into a plan, depending on how fast you want to be able to move, for each year piece. Is a point that would still need some conversation, but I think we already have 3 or maybe even 4 kind of headlines or subtitles, if you will, that we can start hanging information onto as we walk toward building this policy.
Yeah, and I think I brought up more of the accountability stuff because last summer when I was talking to some people, before I had really presented to the board about having an equity policy, I had talked to a bunch of teachers and students at Salem. And I know a big concern with teachers is that they either don't really feel comfortable about talking about some of the issues because they just don't really know how to approach things and be appropriate. And then other ones said that they try to talk about things, but they don't necessarily feel supported that they can talk about issues coming up, or students don't really have the background knowledge, so it's hard to get into topics because they aren't really aware of things. A lot of it was just, mind you, it was a small group of teachers at Salem, so it wasn't like the whole teaching staff or anything, but a lot of it was just them saying that they wanted there to be more training and feel like there was more support to actually have more open conversations about issues without feeling like they're not knowing how to talk about it or talking about something that they shouldn't be or approaching it the wrong way, I guess. Not that that plays directly with accountability, but more just like feeling supported to be able to do those things, and rather than just saying, this is our policy, we don't tolerate this, we don't do this, but like how are you showing that? It's a whole cultural thing, I guess, school culture thing, but
Sure. I mean, this is also a topic where with the best of intentions, if you speak of something incorrectly, there can be ramifications for it.
right.
That makes it, that has the potential to make sensitive conversations high risk ones. And so we want to make sure that when we're having those conversations that we all have the same understanding, and that when we're talking about these things, it's a matter of it's a heart-to-heart piece. It's, I have your best interest at heart, and if I don't understand it, I want you to have my best interest at heart to help me better understand. And that is a cultural thing. That's absolutely a cultural thing, to be able to be at a space where we all can feel safe to have these conversations, and in the end be able to say, that I'm here for you and you're here for me, which sounds easy. And it can be, but it takes work and time and growth and a lot of effort.
Yeah, well, and the other part that I heard from teachers is that they felt like a lot of training needed to happen, so everyone was on the same page.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
they didn't want it to be like a PowerPoint that everyone kind of clicks through. They were really hoping for more interactive presenters and things who actually could have deeper conversations.
Yeah. Kind of like some authenticity when you have to do, hold on, I got to find the right PowerPoint slide to go to talk about this one. Sure. And that, and the kind of the upkeep and training and those conversations, would be part of somewhere in that policy as a board expectation for work forward. No different than we do with, some of our other areas like ESL students or special education students or teaching pedagogy, or, name the list, that's there. Julie, are you good with this page?
Yeah, I am. I'm very familiar. I actually have this document in front of me right
Okay.
now. So it's just whoever else wants to look at it. I printed off a few of them going into here of things that I'd already seen.
Okay. Does anyone else need this up?
No, I have it pulled
Good.
up on mine.
Then I will stop sharing.
So I guess for me, where do we go from here? What are we looking at these documents to see how we like the layout of them? Are we looking to see layout first and then wording? Because we kind of already have a definition. Just trying to see what you guys are thinking.
Great for next step is exactly that. It's, let's get those subtitles down, or what are those big titles or those big bars that we're going to hang things onto, and start with there. And then we can start categorizing all of our ideas. So Chris and I just talked briefly about professional development and some reasons why professional development is going to be important. So that could fall underneath a bar of, could fall under goals or could fall under training. At this point, I don't think it matters. It's okay. Let's talk about, we're just going to call it getting better at this, or a professional development, or wherever, and put that there. And then we can start classifying some of these ideas that we have. And then we take those classifications and we can build from there. That's where I would go.
We'd have a section for a definition, like a section for like our plan, and like where would these different statements fall into? Like training would be under the plan or would be separate from the plan. Accountability would be in a different section, and making them all different sections of the document.
Well, I think that for me, I would like to take each topic globally, and then see what people's thoughts are on those particular topics, not try to predetermine, where I would like to have that information put. I mean, just keep it all together, start to grow that list of things that we wanted to talk about. And as I said earlier, I had those 5 areas that I think, the NISBA document was talking about. Plus, we have our belief statement. We made that. We have that completed, and we can identify some goals, and based on those goals, how can we address curriculum, student achievement, professional development, community and communication, and the structure of our school day. So for me, I kind of like that idea of being able to start to identify in those core areas. And
So I
then
just created a Google Doc under the notes folder and labeled it equity policy topics. And I couldn't type as fast as you were talking, and I think they're probably the categories from the other document you were referring to, but I was trying to write them down. Professional development, curriculum, and that's as far as I got. By the time I got the document.
Student achievement, school environment, communication, and community involvement, and curriculum. I don't know. And it doesn't have to be limited to that, or, those were just my topics. That's, my particular bias, and I understand that I have those, what I was looking at. So I'm open to.
Yeah, I think that's where I struggle a little bit is I've read policies. I'm like, oh, that's great. And I'm like, what are the needs at Salem specifically? Because like, I think those things sound wonderful, but is it really something that needs to be looked at there? And my view of Salem is somewhat limited. I've only lived there 2 years. And I don't work in Salem, but I've met quite a few people in Salem, but I certainly don't want to be throwing ideas that aren't really relevant.
Well, I think that's why we need to start identifying the areas and then start to increase the conversation and, try to get more feedback from people about how to move forward. So if we have general statements and then, start, I mean, I don't think we can set definitive goals just yet, just to have the conversations and to get more people involved in the conversation, because I think the more voices we have, the more, as you say, reflective we will be.
What are those areas again, Anne, that you specifically, because I'm just trying to write them out on my sheet of paper.
Okay.
So I
No,
have training, accountability, curriculum, community involvement, student achievement, communication.
and it was this, I called it the school environment. It's the structure of the school.
Okay.
Programming, um, services, and that's where you have to, I think, take a look at, what past practices have been. Because sometimes, just because it's always been done this way, that's, I think, sometimes where you fall into the trap. Well, doesn't necessarily always have to be done that way. And there's a good reason to look at those practices.
I know I had heard some talk of restorative justice. Is that something that's Salem's moving towards? Or
They
implementing?
are. Julie, maybe you could speak more directly to where it is, what COVID has gotten in the way with the training and
Yeah.
the amount of time that the kids are in the programs. But it was something that the board did set as a goal. And there was a 3-year plan, but Julie, I don't know where we are in that plan.
Yeah.
Is it
And
still
Dr.
moving?
Gluck. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Anne. I'm talking over you.
Okay,
Um,
that's,
yeah, definitely. As far as like some more training in restorative justice, we've been studying it as a whole. Definitely coming towards that. It's actually part of our, we don't want to say a discipline plan, but if you pulled up a discipline referral, it talks about restorative justice, like how are we actually meeting, caring more about the person than we are about what has happened, and making sure that that person can go forward in a positive way and feels the support of community. um, more the restorative is how do we right the wrong? How do we go forward righting a wrong? But then also, how do we make all parties feel heard and also supported by the school and community? The efforts to not obviously have children in some kind of um, in school suspension or a suspension room is kind of our last resort. We try every other avenue to meet that child and to help that child make a positive turn in their life, and do that within the structure of the classroom, a loving classroom, a validation process. So that's kind of our turn, is more to have more restorative justice principles. Obviously with COVID, like there's a lot of things like circles, talking circles were started with Bev Kratzer in all classrooms, just so that they would get used to that kind of atmosphere and that kind of circle talk. And that was started by her, and so then that experience will be more common for kids. And so when issues arise, it's kind of something they're familiar with. Does that make sense? I don't know if it does, but
Yeah, I'm familiar with restorative justice. I was just curious if that was like where Salem was in that process, because I know Anne had mentioned school environment, and like I said, my limited data. I know it's from a small group, but I have quite a few pages of stuff from last summer from students, of what they saw were the issues. And a lot of them, their biggest thing was just that other students make comments or say things and they just don't realize why it's bad. And teachers don't always address it because they're just like, oh, they don't realize it. And like a lot of the students, what they shared was just that they wanted there to be more discussion on and just why you can't say things and why something might not be appropriate or why that could be harmful to someone. Which I know a lot of restorative justice has those conversations. But I just didn't know what Point Salem was at with that.
The board did approve language in the code of conduct to allow restorative practices to begin being implemented, but and Julie, gave you a little bit of idea. So I think it's in the process, but it is a multiple year rollout for the implementation.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. It won't happen overnight.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that will cross over into the equity stuff when you're talking about school culture and environment.
Well, I think that the educational part that you were speaking about is, some people, they say things and they don't realize that they can be hurtful or harmful to others. And that process just needs to be ongoing. If you don't have any experience with it, then you don't know why you shouldn't be saying it. You hear it at home and you repeat it.
And I think, yeah, and right, it seems that a non-restorative approach wouldn't necessarily help bridge those gaps, but could create more, more stronger feelings that are not good feelings, right? So, if people feel like they're being persecuted because they don't understand that what they did was offensive to somebody else. So, I mean, that would
Really,
be obviously the goal.
yeah. Sorry, Bob. I think
Nope,
this
go
is
ahead.
really a great thing to discuss because, I think definitely that starts younger, right? So the goal is, when I was listening to those, I can't even say what they were. Those,
Roundtables?
the round tables. Thank you. That how they talked about how you have to start really young with these kinds of discussions. So when you start, we're kind of like starting mid game. So the idea is to like really start when they're little, pre-K, with these equity discussions. And as you're able to have these, stronger conversations, there's more comfortable in this conversations, and it becomes something that is much more comfortable to talk about and much more comfortable accepted conversation. One thing that was really nice, like, people don't really understand my religion fully, but even Todd DeSoto the other day was making cards for kids to send out for the holiday, and he came to me and he's like, what, are you comfortable with this? And he didn't realize that I was a Christian and everything, but he came to me and he acknowledged, and he's like, I really want to make sure that this is something that you're comfortable with. I mean, to have somebody come to me and really say, hey, before I put this out, would this be offensive? And I thought that was a courageous conversation. That was a conversation that Todd was totally comfortable having with me, and I was honored and felt respected. And even though it was something I was totally comfortable with, he was sensitive to me. And I think like that's what the conversations that we want to instill within kids, that we are looking out for each other. I can say this word, but what does that word mean to you when I say it? And so it's kind of those courageous conversations that as faculty, we start to show that, and we start to show that respect. It's kind of like it can flow down into the children. And I think when they start really young, thinking about what I'm saying and how this might affect somebody, then we have teenagers that care, and we have teenagers that are educated. Like you said, a lot of it is just education. If I said that, how would that make you feel? But I don't know that makes you feel that way,
But it does, I think it has to be more of a collaborative approach and can't be like, I'm teaching you. 'Cause then it becomes, well, what makes you better than me? Um, so I don't know how you, what?
I feel like oh, I'm sorry. I feel like the feelings of the circle, when you think of a restorative circle, when you think of talking in circles, I guess I'm not thinking like teaching as much as I'm thinking the way Bev had these discussions in a circle. So when you think of like a restorative circle, but you think of a talking piece going around a circle, it's equitable. It's an equitable environment already when you do those right. And so then having these discussions isn't more like I'm teaching you as much as more we're working together.
Right.
So do people think that we're ready to start building that framework and identifying those like topic areas? We do have our belief statement, our
I
definition.
think the topics you mentioned are the ones I've seen pretty much across the board in different policies. They're all phrased a little bit differently, but I don't know if there's other topics I've necessarily seen or
Mhm.
can think of.
Of course, this is just the beginning, so it just to start. So, is there anybody who wants to volunteer to type to start building a document or?
I started to type one up.
Okay.
It's in the folder. I put it
Alright, so-
under, I think Bob is in there. I don't know if that's what we're looking at, but I just put equity policy topics to put the topics up that you were.
Yeah.
you
So,
mentioned.
we can each add our own thoughts and perhaps we can start to flesh some of those things out at our next meeting.
So
Perfect.
do you want a separate document for each thing or just one document and we can put our thoughts kind of under each topic?
I think probably, would it be easier just to have one document? Would it just be easier to keep everything at the onset anyhow together?
Yeah, I would think that would be a little bit, just to be able to see what people have contributed.
And then take a look at, I can, when I send out I'll send out the minutes and I'll invite people to take a look at that document and to add any of their thoughts and we can discuss those particular areas at our next meeting. That sound?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. I really have tried to get some other people to join in our committee too. I feel like like you said, if we have more voices, we have a more rounded document.
Mhm.
So I've been trying to. So I don't know if we can add like another invite onto, come and join us as we discuss whatever. I'm just thinking that, I mean, I love being with us, but I'm just thinking maybe having a few other people's insight. If I could invite a few more, just to kind of like, you know what I'm saying, like kind of spread our circle.
The only thing is with the Google Doc, that's limited to a list. I had to give that to Gina at the beginning. So I'm not sure how that we go about sharing that with others. That would have to be, Dr. Glover, would that have to go through Gina if we added more people on that list?
Yeah, we can add more people to that list. That wouldn't be a challenge. Basically, anyone who's on there as a collaborator to the list should be able to share it.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So,
I, like I said, I have this other document that were just things from teachers, students, and parents in Salem. I don't want to publicly share it necessarily. Okay, I tried to take out names, but I don't want to like point fingers. But I don't know if it would be helpful for anyone to see what people had wrote or said.
I think it's great. I think there's a voice, right? There's a voice.
And like I mean, it's certainly not the whole school, but there's some points in here that really stick out to me.
If you're concerned about some issues of confidentiality, Dr. Glover, can that be shared under the agenda under executive content for the people that, or just, is our agenda set up differently than a board?
Anything under the agenda on board docs for executive content is only for,
For
for the
board.
folks who have that level of access.
Okay,
I have it on a Google Doc, so I can just share it with the people here. And some of it I don't feel like is necessarily relevant, but like one example, a student had put that they had listed 27 books that they could remember reading in English classes between 7th and 12th grade. They graduated a year or two ago. I'm not going to say exactly when. And all but one were written by white authors. 2/3 were written by white male authors. And every book that they read in AP literature was written by a white male, even though the list of books that show up on the AP test essay question where you have to write about a book you've read includes many written by women and people of color. There's a lot of examples like that, and I don't know if those are still accurate, but those little points,
well, they certainly go to the curriculum and instruction,
right.
Mhm.
so that would be an appropriate, that we target those.
And that's a student's perspective. Whether it's accurate or not, I don't know, but that's where it's worth looking at. Like, is that accurate? And does the correct curriculum need to be?
I don't know if I could have told you how many books I read in high school.
I
but
could not either. So I'm just like, okay, well, I'll take your word for it.
yeah,
But,
somebody made a list. Wow. No, I think those are illustrative points. And whether, they're current exactly, they're current for those kids that are still coming through, that, a couple years behind, they were still reading those same books. So, I do think that's illustrative and just something that people need to take into consideration as we talk about equity.
yeah, and like
And
I
probably
said, I
the
have.
onus, wouldn't really be on a student to track that, even though
Right.
it appears that the student did, right? But would just be on the, right, you'd want to get ahead of that, right? You'd want to have
Right.
that be, and even it'd be interesting to know what they were this current year.
Yeah, and I wasn't, I mean, as a student here, I graduated fairly recently, but I don't know what has changed since then, but I just have a bulleted list of things that teachers had said and students and parents that some of them are relevant, some of them I feel like they're just being nitpicky, but still their perspective. But I don't necessarily want to make all that public just because I don't want to. Some of this stuff might be obvious on who it's talking about.
It's great. I think if we could gather that information and somehow keep it confident, it's almost like that person was in on our equity committee meeting, right? I mean, that's a voice right there that maybe they're not comfortable stepping forward and having a voice here, but that's a voice. So I think that's awesome if we can find that shareable. That's stuff that we could put in on some of our survey questions. If we put out an equitable survey, I mean, we want to obviously see needs of our community and our social emotional, but also like things like that are good questions to add in.
Kristen, just so that I'm accurate with people, the title of your document is equity policy?
Equity policy topics. But I can rename it whatever.
No, I just wanted to make sure I'm giving people the right document.
Do you want me to put a link to the document in? Oh no, I can't put that in the chat box, right? Because it's only for people who have access to that.
That I don't know.
Yeah, no, but if you email that to any one of us, we can distribute it from there.
Okay.
Actually, if you could email it to me, because I'll include it in the note.
I mean, right now it just has the topics that you had mentioned. There's nothing listed under it, but
No, that's good. The invitation will be, is to start writing.
okay, so okay. It's already shared with everyone here, but I just have to say where to find it. So it's in the Equity Committee folder under minutes and notes.
Okay. So it's in that folder. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I can get that out to people.
And I can share the list of stuff I was just talking about, but I'll just share it directly with, I don't know who, just the people here and then other people I know who are usually here. But
think so, like, where our group of emails that go out, kind of link it on with what Dr. Glover sends us.
okay.
So I
So
really
the
like
Google,
that you did that. I really like you gathered that information. I think that's a good place to be as a committee where people feel comfortable coming up and sharing things. As our pursuit for more of an equitable environment. I think that's nice when those conversations can be had and those issues can come up and be talked about.
just some background on the list I have. There was a group of people meeting last summer. I won't get into the background of how the group came about, but most of the perspectives came from within that group. So I know it's a narrow group, but there were probably 6 teachers who added to it and at least 20 students and a couple of different community members, parent perspectives.
Great. I think that's great.
But that's not the end all be all. It's just before I actually presented to the board about an equity committee, I wanted to get some data on why it might be relevant.
Well, I think, we're on that track, and I think that information, will be all positive parts of the conversation. So I will send that email out to people, and maybe we'll hopefully have some content in that document for our next meeting. Is there anything else that should go on the agenda for our next meeting?
We're going through and coming up with statements that we want to have fall under each of those areas, or any kind of content or statements that we like that address that area.
That's what I think. It has to be open-ended right now. So whatever we want to drop into those topics, and that use that information or those statements to jumping off point for conversation. The more there, the more we talk about.
Sounds good.
I think we're good. So, does anybody else have anything to add for our next agenda? So,
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me a part of it.
Well, thanks for doing the legwork.
Okay, sounds like we're set. I am stopping the recording.
Perfect.
Okay, sounds good.